Hello everyone, happy Friday Eve. So I'm going to talk about from failure to success in content marketing. And we had a debate internally if we should call it failure or maybe just frustration. And our company's been doing content marketing for a number of years. And really what I want to talk about this afternoon are some of the lessons that we learned along this content marketing journey, not only for ourselves, but through our clients as well. And I hope that when you leave here today, if you've already started a content marketing program, that I can help you get it unstuck if it's stuck. And if you haven't started content marketing yet, there are some things that hopefully you can avoid and get to your end goal a lot faster. So a couple of things about me and about our agency. As you mentioned, I've been around quite a long time. Since the late 90s is when I started in digital marketing. So I have seen that transformation from traditional marketing into digital. One of the interesting things that I see happening now is that a lot of digital marketers are going back and using traditional marketing to actually drive eyeballs to their website again. So it's just kind of this complete loop. But our agency is about 50 people. We're located in Phoenix, Arizona, and when I left yesterday it was 105 degrees. But we do SEO, content marketing, we do amplification. And we've learned a lot in the past number of years through our clients we work with. These are some of the marquee clients on the logos here. But the cool thing about working at this agency is that we work with people and businesses that you have never, ever heard of. And the cool thing is that the internet is able to drive traffic and conversions to those websites. And really the best way to do that we found is through content marketing. So what I want to talk about today are 8 different things in terms of lessons that we learned, and just kind of walk you through what those are and the impact that they can have on your content marketing programs. So really a quick short history about content marketing. I actually think it started back in caveman days when people started putting pictures on cave walls. But the opportunity now is that there's a lot more reach. The internet can reach almost everyone on the planet. So content marketing is really more mainstream now than it's ever been before. The company that I work with, the owner, the CEO, Artie Kan, has written a couple of books. His first book was Accelerate, which is the convergence of search, social, and content marketing. And then last year we actually came up with a book called Content Marketing Works. And those books are really about our process and methodology that we use around content marketing. And if you don't have a process instilled in how you do content marketing, it's something that I would strongly suggest that you work on. To introduce this a little bit more, I wanted to show you the Gartner 5-step hype cycle. How many have seen this graph or a version of this graph before? So really it was created more in the technology area. And simply put, when a new technology starts, there's this great interest and there's an inflated expectation about what that new technology will do. And if you overlay this on top of content marketing, really the same thing has happened. A number of years ago, Google did some major updates with Panda and Penguin, and that's really when content marketing hit a good stride, because people couldn't really game the search engines like they used to be able to in the past. So content marketing started, and I think we're about right here, right now, in terms of content marketing. So as a concept, as a strategy that people are using, it's actually started to mature a little bit, and it's actually dropping down into what Gartner calls this trough of disillusionment. And I can tell you, having worked with a lot of clients and potential clients, there's a lot of people out there who have tried content marketing, and they're really frustrated because they're not seeing the results quite yet. So if you look at the Gartner 5-step hype cycle, we actually created our own, and we call it the emotional journey of content marketing. Because really there's a lot of emotion tied up into it, especially if you stalled out and if you're frustrated with the results that you've gotten so far. So as I walk across this bridge here, typically what happens is when you start content marketing, it's really exciting. It's a new concept. It's something that you haven't tried before. The people that you work with are really interested in it. They're excited. They're learning a lot of new things that they hadn't done before. But then what happens is people get a little bit frustrated because it's hard work. And if you're not seeing immediate results in all the work that you're doing, it becomes frustrating. So you end up at the bottom of this trough and you become overwhelmed. And actually, this is the point where you start to point fingers and blame someone for this stupid idea about doing content marketing. And I'll tell you a little story about a client that we brought on board. All of our conversations were with the director, and when they got ready to make the final decision, we had a conference call, and we were expecting to speak only to him, but what happened is he introduced 5 other people who were in the conference room with him, and what he said is, we're making this decision together because this is my circle of blame. So at this point, when people are really frustrated and overwhelmed, they start looking for a scapegoat. But what happens if you stick with it, you end up coming out on the other side. And when you come out on the other side, your content actually gains traction. You get a lot more traffic. You end up with more leads and more conversions. So the things that I've seen in doing this content marketing is really dramatic successes with our clients. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can get there. A couple other things first, though. In terms of content marketing, I think that you should have your own definition internally. And the reason for that is you want to have a common vocabulary around what you're trying to do with content marketing. And content marketing is different than branded content. And that's sometimes a tough concept for some people to understand. So really what you're trying to do is educate people to help them solve their problems as opposed to trying to sell them something. So our definition of content marketing is actually on the wall in our entryway at our office, and we have that there not only for new clients that come in, but we also have that there to remind our team members what we're trying to do. So for us, content marketing is the art of providing relevant, useful content to our customers without selling or interrupting them. So instead of pitching our products and services, we're actually delivering information that makes the consumers more informed before they buy. And that's really the key element, and that's the big driver of what content marketing is all about. So if you think you're doing content marketing by providing service brochures and product descriptions, that's necessary, but that's not really what we look at in terms of what content marketing is all about. So let me go through my 8 lessons learned, and I want to start here with leadership. If leadership is not on board with content marketing, you're going to have one of the biggest problems that we see. So typically what happens is it takes 6 to 8 months to really gain traction with a content marketing program. And if management is not on board, they're going to be frustrated because they're going to be writing checks every month to create content and do the things that you need to do along this content marketing journey. And if they're not on board with knowing how long it takes to actually produce results, you're going to end up something like this, where you have a lot of pressure to produce results over time, but nothing is going to happen for a while. So part of that leadership is to actually get other people involved in it, to break down silos within your company, because content marketing isn't really a campaign, it's more of a culture that you have to grow within your company. So a lot of times we talk with people that say, we started this content marketing campaign and it's not working. Well, the whole reason behind it is they're looking at it as a campaign. And it can't be a campaign, it's got to be part of your culture, because as you start to grow your content marketing, there are so many content ideas that you can create from internal knowledge, from subject matter experts that you have on staff. So you can't be thinking of it as a campaign or a tactic or a strategy. It actually has to become part of the culture within your company. If you're trying to convince your boss that you should do content marketing, we created a site. The title of the site is howtoconvinceyourboss.com. So within that site, there are a lot of PowerPoint slides, there's spreadsheets, there's a lot of really good information that you can take to leadership to help them better understand what content marketing is all about. So the first lesson is the leadership team has got to be on board if you want content marketing to be successful. The next lesson is not creating most of your own content. And that might sound a little strange coming from someone who works for an agency that does content marketing. We create content for our clients. But the fact of the matter is that the people inside your company know more about your products and services than anyone else. and they should be the ones that are helping you create content. And you may think, well, these people aren't writers. They haven't been trained to write content. But simply put, they have the ideas and they have the information because they have the inside track that you should be tapping into. For example, there are questions that people ask your customer service department every single day. Are you writing content around that? So really, you ought to be writing all of your own content. And in a lot of cases, there are compliance issues, especially in the medical field, and in terms of legal issues as well on legal sites. So those are the people who actually know what the compliance issues are and what the rules are. So you need to have those people contributing and helping you create that content. So the bottom line is you got to have your team contribute. Again, you guys are the subject matter experts. No one knows your business as well as you do. The other part of it is too is you've got to make content marketing and creating content a priority within your company. And if you haven't done that yet, one of the best ways to do is to tap into the resources that you have internally, get them excited about sharing ideas and giving you information that you need in the marketing department to really help create this content. The other thing that you might want to consider too is rewarding people who contribute. If you go to our website, verticalmeasures.com, almost all of the content that we produce and publish is done by our staff. So we have videos, we have infographics, we have long-form content of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 words, and it's all created internally by our team. And what we do is we incent those team members to provide content simply by giving them a $50 spiff for the content they create. And when you look at that amount of money, it's not a great amount of money, but it's enough to provide an incentive for them to be interested enough to provide content. And I would tell you that if you can spend $50 on a 3,000 word piece of content that's well written, that is a super bargain. So one of the things you might do is get your folks to contribute and help them by giving them some kind of contribution. The other thing too is to make it easy for your team to share. We actually have an email address at Vertical Measures. It's content@Vertical Measures. So if someone comes up with a content idea, it's really easy for them to just create an email, send it to it gets to our marketing team, and you'd be surprised at how many new ideas that we get. Sometimes it's because people go to a conference. Like we had a number of people last week go to Content Marketing World. So we added some more ideas based on some of the things that they heard in the conference. So creating ways to make it easy to contribute and share is a really good idea. And then the other thing that we do internally that I think really helps us create this culture of content is that we share successes. So we're often looking at engagement and page views of the content that people are producing internally, and we give awards out each month in our monthly meeting based on the stats that we get in terms of that content. So people like to be rewarded, they like to be recognized in public as well. So if you're not creating most of your own content, that could be a problem. The other thing too is that great content is everywhere. I spoke at the High Five conference in Raleigh earlier this year. One of the things that happened is I had a small room. There were a whole bunch of people that wanted to listen to what I had to say. They actually had to bring in a bunch of chairs. It was standing room only, which is really kind of cool. But I took a picture of it and tweeted it out. So there's contents everywhere. And if you get your whole team involved in that, just think of all the opportunities that you have that you can add additional content, not only on your website, but in your social media channels as well. Another thing that could be a problem is that you have the wrong strategy. About 18 months ago, we reviewed what we do in terms of creating content marketing strategies for our clients. And our old process was that we would create this really in-depth document. It was super complete. It had personas, it talked about the buyer's journey, it had content calendars, it had topics, it had ideation all around it. And we would deliver this very proudly, and it would be about this thick. And we called it the thunk, because if you put it on a desk, it would make that noise. And what we discovered over time is that people found it really interesting, and they would read through it, and it would end up in a file cabinet, and no one would ever look at it and use it to direct their daily activities. So about 18 months ago, what we decided to do is that we still want to have a complete content marketing strategy, but we want it to be more agile. And if you're familiar with the term agile, as far as it relates to web development, that's really kind of what we're thinking about, is we want to streamline things because we want to produce content, we want to learn from it, we want to do iterations of it, and just keep that going over and over again. And what we found is that we can do things quicker and faster based on having this agile strategy rather than having this great, big, thick strategy that we used to deliver. So if you don't, how many of you have a content strategy? Just a few of you. So the other part of this is that you should have a strategy. You got to know where you're going so you can figure out how you're going to get there. You know, actually there were two questions that I wanted to ask, and I forgot to ask those as I got started. And I wanted to ask how many people are actually doing content marketing? So it looks like about 2/3 of the room. So leave your hand up if you feel you're being really successful with it. Okay, so now we're down to like 5 hands. So this is the right audience then. So you need to make sure that you do have a strategy. I just want to talk about one of the things that we use as part of our strategy at Vertical Measures, and we call it the hub and spoke content marketing model. And this is just an illustration of how it works. In the center there, you see what we call the hub. And the hub is actually a complex piece of content. It could be a case study, it could be a white paper, it might be a video, it could be an infographic. But really the intent of that hub piece of content is we want to put it behind a lead capture form, because we feel if it's strong enough content, someone will trade some of their personal information in order to download it. And then you see those spokes that are around that. Those are pieces of content that we publish not only on our own website, but we publish those in other channels. So the purpose of the spokes is to actually talk about the hub and to drive traffic back to that hub. Because really what we're trying to do is get people to download that piece of content so we can start our relationship with them over time. So this is the concept behind it. And the way it works is like this. You see in the center of this slide, we did your content marketing strategy, and we put this behind a lead capture form. And then these are all the pieces of content that we publish to help support that. And we kind of look at it almost like a new product launch, because we do a press release. We'll write articles on our website that talk about it. We'll publish in LinkedIn and some of the other social media channels. We'll actually do promotion and paid advertising around that, because we want people to download this so we can start that relationship and follow on conversations with them through our lead nurture and email programs. This is another thing that we did in the medical field. On the right-hand side is the hub, and we actually created a quiz. And the quiz took people through a number of screens. And at the end of that, after they had invested 5 or 6 minutes in answering all the questions, we said, if you'd like to get the results of the quiz, we need your email address. And then the article on the left-hand side talks about the quiz and how it works. But think about the hubs that you might create, or maybe you've already created this rich piece of content and you haven't put it behind a gate. You're not asking for lead capture yet. And I have some people who say, well, Mike, we're creating this really good piece of content. We want the search engines to index that, and we want to try to rank for this really awesome piece of content that we paid a lot of money for. You actually have to have a strategy behind the hub and spoke, and that's part of creating this whole content marketing strategy. If your strategy is to do lead nurture, you do a lead capture form. There are variations of this that you can do, though. So what you might do is you might publish the hub as a long form piece of content, and then throughout that content, you might just have calls to action that say, this is a really long article. If you'd like to download the PDF of this, click here. So you get both. So you get this long form piece of content that can be indexed and ranked, but you also have the opportunity for people who find it interesting enough to download that PDF as well. So that's kind of a variation on that lead capture. The next thing is failure to amplify. And you probably can't see it on the bottom of this slide, but there's over 3 million blog posts published every single day. So if you build it, they may come, but chances are they may not come. So we also include amplification in all of the content that we do, especially the best pieces of content that we want to make sure that we get good engagement with. So amplification, if you don't have a lot of traffic to your website, can actually drive enough traffic so you can have data that will help you make decisions. Because if you don't have data on how your content is performing, you're just a person with another opinion. And data will help you make better decisions. So amplification can get you that traffic that you need to have enough of a sample size to understand what's happening with your content. And when we talk about amplification, we actually talk about it in two different buckets. We talk about promotion and we talk about distribution. And in terms of promotion, really what we're trying to do is bring an audience to our content. So when we talk about promotion, we're generally talking about paid. We're talking about organic search. We might be talking about Facebook ads. We might be talking about LinkedIn. So there's a lot of different ways that we can get an audience to come to our content. And then in terms of distribution, the way we look at that is we're taking our content to a larger audience. So we're distributing it somewhere else. And the way to think about that is if you, how many people have posted presentations on SlideShare? I didn't see very many hands go up. It is an awesome way to distribute a presentation that you've done. In fact, we've gotten hundreds of thousands of people who have actually looked at our presentations on slideshare.net. And it belongs now to LinkedIn. I think they bought it a couple years ago. But it's a great way to distribute non-proprietary presentations that you do. And it's keyword rich too. So you can do keyword searches on SlideShare based on what your presentation is all about. So people can find you. You're distributing your content in other places. So make sure that you're amplifying your content. And again, it's no secret. You've heard today already, I'm sure you'll hear tomorrow, different places where you can promote your content. But there's a lot of different channels out there, and it gives you the opportunity to learn faster because you can drive traffic to that good content that you've been publishing. So organically and on the paid side, I have links on here. If you have really good content, you'll get links to it. We call that link attraction. You can do social media. Influencers are a good way to actually promote your content. Distribution, as I just talked about. On the paid side, on our hubs, we actually do press releases based on our hubs. Again, you can use influencer marketing and paid in terms of bringing more people in to see your content. So what amplification is not, it's not a tactic or a one-off. It's something that we do almost every time we publish a substantial piece of content. It is not an alternative to content creation because really what you're trying to do with amplification is drive eyeballs to your very best content. You want people to engage with that because once you get them in your ecosystem, then you can keep working on that relationship through lead nurture. And the other thing about it is it's really not easy. It's something that you have to bake into your process and your methodology. But over time, you get better at it. And you get better at it, it's more effective and more efficient. So if you're not amplifying your content, you really should start to consider doing that. The other thing that we see oftentimes is that lead nurture is an afterthought. And it shouldn't be. It should be part and parcel of what you do in your content marketing programs. One of the big hospital corporations in Phoenix, we actually did a half-day workshop for them. And the half-day workshop talks about our 8-step methodology, and it's intended to get everybody on the same page and kind of kickstart and launch a content marketing program. So about halfway through, we had a break, and we were talking to the director of marketing about their lead nurture and about their email campaigns. And the question that we asked is, so when you have someone fill out a form or do lead capture, what are you doing with those emails? How are you marketing to those people? And their response was really surprising because they said nothing. it is a big black hole in our marketing campaigns. So if you have a database of email addresses and you're not working those people, there's a huge opportunity there for you to actually pick up more traffic, more leads, and more business from something that you've already done the heavy lifting on. So if you're not doing lead nurture, you really need to make sure that you're reaching out to these folks. If you do lead nurture, it can do a couple of different things for you. It can shorten your sales cycle. It can increase your average order value. And the other thing it can do is lower your cost per lead. So these people have already started a relationship with you because they trusted you enough to give their email address, and they're actually expecting you to send them something. And one of the things that we discovered through statistics is that up to the 7th touch point, the 7th email that you send someone, the opportunity to close them increases. So if you do have an email program and you're not sending at least 7 emails over time, you're missing opportunity as well. Because through that 7th email, you have an opportunity to up that close ratio. And after the 7th, it starts to drop off. But oftentimes, we'll send a welcome email because somebody downloaded something, and that's it. It's the last time we actually contact them. So based on behavior, based on form fills, there are different things that you can do in terms of that lead nurture. And one of the things that we use a marketing automation system. It's called HubSpot. And we're a HubSpot agency, and we also work with our clients on that as well. But what that allows us to do is set up a number of different workflows based on the behaviors of what people do on our website. So the thing that you really need to understand is that people are going through the buyer's journey, and they're at different stages of that buyer's journey when they come to your website. So initially, you want to send them a welcome email, but if they've been on your site on 10 different pages, you don't want to send them another welcome email because you've already done that. So if you're setting up workflows, those behaviors that they have can trigger separate emails, and then they start down this path based on their behaviors, and you're meeting them at their need level. So if they're in the awareness phase, you can send out a particular email. If they're in the consideration phase, it would be a different email. If they're getting ready to make a decision, that email is going to be a lot different. So make sure that as you're sending emails out, they're appropriate for what step that prospect is in the buying cycle. Number 3, you're not optimizing your content. And we see this across the board, especially with new people that come on board with us. And the thing is that you spent 10 hours creating this awesome piece of content, and you're not taking 10 minutes to optimize it as you publish it on your website. It's really short-sighted. It's something that you should bake into the best practices that you have. Optimizing content as you publish it is actually fairly straightforward and simple with most content management systems. If you're using WordPress, some of the plugins, All-in-One, SEO, and Yoast, they're really designed to help you do title tags, to do meta descriptions, to do the things that you need to do, the basic SEO best practices as you publish content. So if you're not doing that, it's one thing to just kind of take a step back and make sure that you have good titles, that you have meta descriptions included. And some would argue that doing this is a waste of time, and I disagree. And actually, the only time that you can get 2 SEOs to agree on anything is that the third SEO is wrong. So other SEOs may not agree with me on this, but one of the things about meta descriptions I think is really important. It's not really a ranking factor any longer. But consider the fact that if you're on a ranking page and you're showing up with 7 or 8 or 9 other listings, if you have a strong meta description, that's a chance for you to get somebody to lean in and click your listing as opposed to the other listings on the page. So it may not help in terms of ranking, but when someone's on the ranking page, it certainly helps, especially if it's strong, it supports the title of what the article is, and you have a call to action in that meta description. So we have a saying around our office that the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google search results. You can probably hide a lot of other stuff there too, but think about your own search habits. How many times do you go to the second page of search results? Probably not very often. And if you think about search engines over time, they have become more and more and more sophisticated, right? But the other thing that's happened too is we as searchers have become more and more sophisticated as well. So we're starting out with better search queries. And the thing is, typically what we'll do is instead of going to the second page of results, what we do is modify our search query. How often do you modify the query as opposed to going to the second page of search results? So that's why we feel that optimization is still really, really important. In fact, 92% of the traffic that Google will send to a website actually comes from that first page of results. And if you look at the right-hand side of this slide, the graph, the left-hand side of the graph, actually, you see how it tails off to that dotted line. That's the first page. Those are the clicks that happen from the first page of results. Everything to the right of that dotted line is from page 2 and back. So being on that first page is really, really important. So we feel that optimization is still one of the things that we really have to work on. A couple other things to support that. 93% of the people that are going to make a purchase actually go online before they make that purchase. So think about your own buying habits. I recently bought a kayak. And one of the first things I did is I went online and I tried to look at what the right kind of kayak I would need. So I did my research before I purchased. And that just supports that. You know, over 9 out of 10 people are going to go online to do a search before they buy something. Along with that, too, is that 86% of those people are actually going to do a search that doesn't have brand in it. So they haven't even thought about you as a company. They haven't even thought about your brand yet. What they're trying to do is answer a question or solve a problem. So at the very high end of the buyer's journey or the sales funnel, and they're just really trying to figure out what it is that I want. And after they have some choices and have some more information, and they move further down in that buyer's journey, they're going to start doing some branded searches because they're going to do some comparisons, right? So they're going to do this versus that in terms of something that they might purchase. And then finally, another stat is that 90% of the people that are going to the search engines are actually clicking on organic listings as opposed to the paid listings. And there are a number of surveys that I've looked at, and it runs anywhere from 85 to like 92% of people are clicking on the organic listings. So what that tells me is that organic is still very, very important. It doesn't discount the fact that there are people who are clicking on the paid ads, because certainly there are, but in the scheme of things, the larger number of people are actually still clicking on those organic listings. So these are the most common SEO problems that we find, and I'm going to run through these actually pretty quickly. But in almost every case, when someone new comes to us, they probably have 4 out of these 7 in some way, shape, or form. So the first thing is actually unintentional duplicate content. And if you have an e-commerce site and you're using manufacturers' descriptions, you have duplicate content because they're sharing that content with however many affiliates or distributors that they have online. So that's one way that you can have duplicate content. Another way is a lot of people are using WordPress, and WordPress as a content management system out of the box creates duplicate content. And if you're using tags or categories in WordPress, you have duplicate content. There are some simple things that you can do, especially if you have those plugins I mentioned, the all-in-one SEO and Yoast, that can take care of that with just a couple of clicks of your mouse. But what happens is if you have duplicate content on your website on a number of different pages, Google's confused. They're trying to determine which of those 3 pages is the one that you want me to rank. So rather than ranking one of those pages, they don't rank any of them because they don't know which one you want. So part of it is you have to make sure that you don't have duplicate content on your site. The other thing is slow page load speeds. And page load speed became a factor in search engine rankings, gosh, I think 6 or 7 years ago. You want your site to load in about 3 seconds or less if possible. And there's a lot of things that can keep that from happening. If you go to testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com, testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com, That's actually a Google website that will show you how quickly your website loads. And will also give you an indication in terms of comparing your site and your category of business with other websites. So you can see how you rank against some of your competition in terms of page load speed. Amazon did a study and they found for every second of lag time, they were losing $1.6 billion a year in revenue. So for them, it was a high priority. And I would imagine for most of us, it should be a high priority, because if you're like me, especially on mobile, if you're doing a search and you're sitting there tapping your foot waiting for a website to load, oftentimes I'll just click out of it because I don't want to wait. People are really, really impatient with that. It is a ranking factor, so it's something that you really want to pay attention to. Poor HTML, I kind of talked about that a little bit in terms of meta descriptions. A couple of tags that you want to think about as you publish content. The H1 tag, what we find a lot of times is that people come to us and they'll have 5 H1 tags on their page. Don't do that. You should only have 1 H1 tag, and it should support the title and the URL of that particular page. So make sure that you have meta descriptions. If you don't, the search engines are going to find some content on that page and they're going to use that as a description, and it may not be the best parts of the content that you have on the page. So I'm going to show you a link here that you can learn more about SEO and some of the things that you should be doing as I go through this a little bit more. The other thing that we find too is that people are not optimizing images. They're taking photos with their camera oftentimes, and they're using the camera name of the JPEG. And you shouldn't be doing that. So it shouldn't be DSN0077 as what the name of the image is on your website. You should name it appropriately for the content that's on that page. There's a lot of semantic relationships that you can create with the content on your page just by simply naming an image or a video that's appropriate to the content that's on that page. It's really simple to do. If you're on a PC, you can right-click it and rename it and then upload it. It same holds true on a Mac. It's real simple to rename those images. So if you're not doing that, you really should. The other part of image optimization is including alt tags. So an alt tag is just another opportunity to add context to what that photo is and relate it back to the content that's on that web page. So make sure you're doing that in terms of images and videos. The next thing is bad backlinks or not enough backlinks. Does everybody know what backlinks are? Not all hands are going up. So backlink is actually a link that's on another website that points to you. So it's a vote. It's a vote of authority that this particular page on your website is worthy of me sending my traffic over to your website. So it's still kind of the coin of the realm, and it still really helps in terms of ranking. But what we found, and this especially 4 or 5 years ago, is that people were buying links from networks. And Google put the kibosh on all of that with the Penguin update, where they actually de-indexed a whole bunch of different websites. But the thing about links, and the important thing to consider, is that websites that have authority and have relevant content towards you, if they're linking to you, they give you link juice, and it gives you more opportunity to rank higher on your website and pages within your site. The other thing that people miss quite often is that they're not linking internally. So oftentimes we'll find this really nice, rich piece of content. It might be 400 or 500, 600 words, and there are no links at all to other pages on the website. So make sure that you're linking within the content on your website to other pages that are appropriate. Be thinking of the intent that this person has on that particular page. What do they need to do next? What do you want them to do to move them down that sales funnel to get them to go further and potentially buy from you? The other problem that we see is thin content. And thin content is like 300 or 400 words. And one of the speakers this morning was talking about watching the football game and producing all this content and then publishing that. And if most of the content on your site is thin, you're not going to really rank for much of anything. So the intent of the search engines is to actually deliver the best answer, to deliver the best content for what people are searching for. Oftentimes you can't do that in 300 or 400 words. So if your website has mostly thin content, chances are you're not going to rank for very much. But the caveat is that you shouldn't write for word count. You shouldn't say, okay, I'm going to write 800 words and then finish. You want to write to what is the appropriate answer or solution or topic that you're talking about, as opposed to actually creating something just based on word count. Because with the Google answer box, oftentimes people asking questions, you might have an answer that's 2 paragraphs long that fits in that answer box. So, but if most of your content is thin, chances are you're not ranking very well and you don't have much traffic. And then the last thing is you've got to be mobile friendly. So it's 2017, if you're not mobile friendly, you are way, way, way behind. And what happens oftentimes is that people have legacy systems and they have IT departments that kind of control everything within the marketing department, and it's difficult to get the resources to actually come up with a mobile friendly site. But really nowadays there's no excuse for it. WordPress, in most cases, the themes that you can buy, and some of the themes are $50. They're already mobile friendly. So there's really no reason why you shouldn't have a mobile friendly site. So if you got tiny little text and itty bitty buttons when you go to a website, what do? You bail out. You need to have big buttons on the phone so people can touch those easily with their fingers. So make sure that you have a mobile friendly site. So here's a couple of resources that you can use, verticalmeasures.com /resources, and then SEO /SEO. And these are a video series that we did that actually talks in a whole lot more detail about what I just covered. So if you want to learn more about SEO, you can go here, just type in SEO in Google or Bing, and you can do the same, but this is a good resource page that you might want to look at. Number 2, you are afraid to publish your best content. And oftentimes we're talking to people who don't want to publish certain kinds of content because they feel it's proprietary, or it feels like they are maybe giving away a competitive advantage. But really what you want to do is you want to publish content in these 6 areas. You want to publish content about price, because quite frankly, people want to know what it costs before they buy it. If you are in an e-commerce situation, you absolutely know that people are going to try to look at 3 or 4 different websites to try to figure out what the price is. Sometimes you can't answer that question. Sometimes giving a price is almost impossible. So look at an example of someone who is selling in-ground swimming pools. If I said, how much does an in-ground swimming pool cost, I wouldn't be able to answer that question, because I don't know what size it is, I don't know what the access to the backyard is, I don't know how deep it's going to be, I don't know what the deck around the pool is going to be like, so I can't answer that question. But what I can do is I can talk about all the variables that go into pricing a swimming pool. You can talk on your website about all the variables that go into pricing your services. And it does a couple of different things. It allows that user to better understand why you can't give a price, but it also gives them a better understanding of what those variables are. So after they've read that article, they know what it is that they need to have. They need to understand how big the pool is going to be, what kind of decking are we going to have. We haven't really thought about how hard it is to get in the backyard. Do they need to do something special? So when you're talking about price, sometimes you can give a price, but other times you're going to have to talk around that a bit and talk about the variables. The next thing is problems and issues. Every single business has ongoing problems and issues, some more than others. So if you're selling gold coins, there are certain things that people are concerned about because of things they've heard about people who sell gold. Payday loans is another thing. So if you have issues, be transparent about it. Tell people up front, here are the issues that we have in our industry. Here are the issues that we have around our services. Being transparent actually gains a lot of trust from people who come to your site. And if you expose it before they ask the question or talk about that concern, you're steps ahead. So make sure you're talking about problems and issues. Also talk about comparisons. How do you compare with the other people out there? If I were going to buy a large screen TV, I do a lot of research, and then when I find out what the size is, and if I want LED or OLED, I'm going to start looking at Samsung and Vizio and Sony and some of the other brands. I want to do comparisons to see which ones are the best. But think about this if you don't want to share that kind of information. If you have that content on your website, that person is reading about the comparisons on your website. So the chance of you actually taking them to the next step with a strong call to action is really strong. If you don't have this kind of content, they're on somebody else's website reading about it. So think about that as you kind of go through this process. Reviews are important. Oftentimes people are getting down in the bottom of the sales funnel, they're getting ready to make a decision, and they do reviews. Are you a 4? Are you a 4.5? Are you a 5? Based on people that have reviewed your products or services. Best and top content is really good content to publish. Face it, most people are lazy, and if you can create a top 10 list or a top 5 list, you've just saved them a lot of time, trouble, and effort. And again, they're on your site reading about it. And I would imagine in that top 10, you're going to be in there. In that top 5, you're going to be in there talking about your products and services. So I would much rather have them on my site reading that than on someone else's site. And then resource pages are a really good way to engage the reader, but they're also really good for link building. So within your industry, there are probably a lot of things that you can put on a resource page. You can talk about some of the new technologies, some of the new techniques, maybe some new regulations and things that are happening in your space. And this resource page is just this amalgamation of all this really cool stuff. And the reader can go through that, and within that resource page, you're probably going to have 2 or 3 links in there that direct them to other pages on your site, because that's part of that resource list. But then other people who see that, who are writing about your industry or your services, go, wow, that is a really complete resource page, and you're going to end up getting links from other websites for that resource page as well. And then finally, number 1 is ideation gone awry. And we feel that this is one of the most important things that we help our clients with, is actually coming up with the right titles and headlines for content. And if you think about it, most people who write have been trained to write for magazines or for newspapers, not necessarily for the web. So a newspaper headline or a magazine headline that's intended to grab someone's attention may not be the best title or headline for an article that you're going to publish on your website, and I'll show you why. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the best ways to get ideas is to ask your staff. We send an email out twice a year to our staff, and we ask them to tell us the 5 questions that they get asked the most. And when we do that, we have almost 50 people, so 5 times 50 is 250 ideas. What a great way to actually get things started a couple of times a year based on what we know is happening in the trenches, what people are asking about, and what's topical right now. So if you haven't done that with your staff, it's a really good suggestion to send that email out. Ask them to give you 5 ideas around content. You'll end up with a lot of duplication, but dedupe that list, and out of 250, I would imagine you probably still have a good, strong 100+ great ideas, and it only takes 1 quick email to send out. The other thing that we do is we actually use Google, and we use it simply because we can find out what people are searching for just by doing a search in Google. And I'm sure you've all noticed that the Google Suggest or autocomplete, as you start typing something in, I have a couple of examples. How much does, and then Google finished it off, Tom Brady make? How much does a blue whale weigh? So this is kind of general stuff, but you get the idea is that you start typing something in, Google is going to complete that for you. As you get more specific about your business, the best wireless speaker, security camera, surround system, security system. So Google is really kind of helping us out simply by letting us know what searches have been made and the searches that they have included in their database. So we start with Google just simply because we know that most of the searches that are done out there, no offense to the guy from Bing, most of the searches that are done out there are actually done on Google. But you can also do a wild card by putting in an asterisk. At the end of this, it says hiking boots versus, and then what Google serves up is shoes, trail runners, trail shoes, and running shoes. So this person who's doing this search is at the top of the sales funnel. They're just trying to figure out what options do I have. So not only do we do it on desktop, but we also do it on mobile. So what we're trying to do is find out what are people searching for, and can we take those ideas and create topics and headlines around that. Another thing that we do is we use a number of tools. This is one is called keywordtool.io. It will kind of expand on what Google will give you in terms of what people are searching for. The cool thing about this is you can alphabetize all the results and you can export it. They have a free version and they also have a paid version. We also use Moz. Does anybody use Moz as a service? Okay, so there's a few of you who do. It's actually a number of tools baked into services that they provide. About 6 months or so ago, they actually really updated their keyword tool. So what this allows us to do then is to actually keep expanding that list. Because what we're trying to do is get the best ideas that we possibly can, because we're going to take another step, and I'll show you that as we create this. So these are some of the other tools that we use. App.Blueberry, Quora, and Yahoo Answers. Those are really good places where you can find out what people are asking, the questions that they're asking. Another good site is called Ask the Public. When you go to that home page, it's really kind of creepy. And trust me, it's really kind of creepy, but it's a really good tool. So it's actually built out of the UK, so you have to select US if you want US results. And then the keyword tool IO and Moz.com. So those are some of the tools that we use. So here's the key, and this is the takeaway on this ideation phase, is what we do is we find these things that people are actually searching for, and then we put those in to the search string, and then we find out if other companies are addressing that search exactly. So what we find is that there are topics and headlines around that keyword search, but a lot of people aren't addressing that in an exact manner. And I can tell you, if you create a piece of content that is the exact title and headline of that search that you did, there's a really good chance you're going to rank for that. And I'll give you an example. We worked with a tourism company in Arizona, and we were doing this same ideation process. And we found that people were typing in restaurants near the Mesa Convention Center. So they didn't have that on their website. It was a real simple thing to create a list of 10 restaurants near the Mesa Convention Center, and within about 4 or 5 days, that piece of content ranked #1. So we also did that for restaurants near the Phoenix Convention Center, which is a lot more competitive, and it's actually still on the first page of Google search results. So again, the takeaway here is find out what people are searching for, do that search on the search engine. If no one is addressing it exactly, it's a good opportunity for you to write content around that. If you want to learn more about our ideation process, vertical measures / ideation, that is actually a 40-minute video of our CEO, Arnie Ken. So I just touched the surface and gave you concepts around ideation. If you want to learn a lot more about it and become really, really good at it, I would suggest you watch his ideation video. So just to kind of wrap this all up, if you do these things correctly, there's some big results that you can get. This is actually a sleep clinic. It's a site in Alaska. And what they do is they provide CPAP masks for people who have sleep apnea. And I just want to ask you a question. One of their pieces of content is, why am I so tired all the time? It got 154,000 views. How many of you have pages on your site that have gotten 154,000 views? So this stuff actually really works, and this is an idea of their search in terms of how the hockey stick effect happens. But again, it's not something that happens overnight. It takes 6 to 8 months to actually get this going. It also doesn't matter what industry you're in. You may think that you're in an industry that isn't really very sexy or that people would find a lot of opportunity to search. This is a data and mobile application website. It's called Segway Technologies. They have a piece of content, Waterfall versus Agile. It has 92,000 views of that one piece of content. And again, here's what their traffic looks like. So they're at about 60,000 visits per month. How many of you have 60,000 visits per month on your site? So content marketing actually works, and it works really well. We have another client, it's a data recovery client. In March of 2016, they started publishing content on a weekly basis. Their traffic's up 240%, and their leads are up 221%. So we absolutely know that content marketing works. And this last example is about a piece of content on vertical measures. And what we did is created a piece of content that is how much does content marketing cost? That's actually number one if you search it in Google. The other thing that we did is we took all of the subheads. We were doing a content experiment. We changed all of the subheaders into questions. So we have how much does research cost, content strategy cost, content promotion cost. And you see those numbers on the right-hand side. If you type those questions in, that's where they rank. So not only do we rank number one for the article, we rank number one for a number of those subheaders that we have within that content. So think about the content that you currently have on your site. Find out what people are actually searching for. You may freshen the content with different headlines and different URLs and do subheaders as questions and get these same kind of results. So in summary, your whole company needs to buy in and truly understand what you're trying to do with content marketing. You need to have a documented strategy, and we prefer that agile model. And then you got to create content that people are actually searching for, and then you can't skip that ideation step. So that's what I got, and the companies that truly understand these principles are the ones that are doing incredible things online. I'm going to be around. If you want, I can answer questions. If you want to download Content Marketing Works for free, this URL here, vert.ms/cmworks, you can download the whole book for free and learn more about what I just talked about because it goes into great detail. Do I have time for questions or no? I'm done.